And we're live. Caught me in weird mid-gesture going live, adjusting the spectacles. It's a joke that I saw running around on the internet. I've seen a few times that I quite like different ways you can pronounce words. Sometimes, concurrently with the language, other times where you take the way it used to be pronounced or whatnot. The one that sprang to mind, I forget the exact thing, but an example of it would be the figure of ancient legend Damocles and testicles. The end of the word is the same, but you pronounce it totally differently. And life might be more fun if we pronounced all the words like Damocles. Like, ow, someone kicked me in the testicles. Just to make life interesting and different. These are things happen, that thoughts that pass through my head, or actually thoughts that are presented by other people, to be completely honest, and I spend a bit of time thinking about them. Yes, cheers. This is my soursop juice with lemonade. Soursop nectar with lemonade. So it's a Tuesday. It is the 26th of May, and in Australia, that's Sorry Day, which is a day used to commemorate the really shitty treatment that Indigenous Australians have received, particularly focusing on the case of the stolen generations, where young Aboriginal kids of mixed race were taken away from their Aboriginal families with the belief that they should be civilized. Two schools of thought, and they could actually possibly both be true. Neither of them are particularly good or reflect particularly well. One is that the white Australians thought, well, because that Aboriginal kid has some white blood in him, we can civilize him. He or she is not beyond redemption. We shall civilize them in the white ways. The other one is kids of mixed race were usually illegitimate and could, of course, lead to awkward court settlements when this kid who's been raised by their mother finds out their dad is a wealthy local landowner who had a bit of a dalliance, and this kid would be legally entitled to a claim on said wealthy landowner's assets. So if you just take the kid away and the kid never knows where they come from, that sort of thing isn't going to happen. My little introductory talk. Hello, Invisible Chicken, a musical aviator. Musical aviator doing a virtual flight sim tour of Australia. So many of the little towns in Northern Territory and Western Australia, essentially, and some missionaries kidnapped all the kids and forced them to live here and banned them speaking their own language. Yes, there was a shit ton of that. People who would claim to be well-meaning, but were enacting bloody genocidal colonizer mentality bullshit of saving the kids by completely dislocating them and taking away any sense of identity from them and fucking with them. So long, proud history of colonizers around the world doing that. Trying to take away sense thing. Oh, hey, Abigail, can't stay long. Well, thank you for popping by and saying hello. Always good to see you. As the saying goes, Don't have to be here for a long time. Just be here for a good time. Because yes, it's just nice to see you. Nice that you popped in to say hi, and completely understand if you have to be somewhere else. It's we have lives to some extent. Anyway, may or may not get an AIDSy this evening, and if we get him, it will probably be for a comparatively limited time, judging by his text message. And even if he can't bring himself to stick to what he should stick to, namely get some more rest, we might encourage him to. Abigail, you went down a rabbit hole on YouTube watching Doug Anthony All-Stars videos. There would be some weird and wonderful stuff in there, I imagine. Hey, Peter, how you going, man? I saw the Doug's live twice, I think. Once before they were very famous, their first headline gigs in Sydney, and it was in a relatively small venue, like a pub. And they were good. And then there was that period where they were the It Boys. So I think they're Gen X, or are they older than Gen X? Are they young boomers? Let me look them up. Sorry. Fuck you, Wikipedia. DAS does not stand for Data as a Service or Desktop as a Service. It stands for Doug Anthony All-Stars. Fine. Apparently, I have to type it all out. Doug Anthony All-Stars. Get their names. Okay, so Paul McDermott and Tim. No, I just got to look at their individual entries to see when they were born. I know Paul McDermott was 62, which technically makes him a young boomer rather than old Gen X. And so they're all probably the same age. 63, age 56, yeah, right on the cusp. And Richard Feidler, 64. So they're born 1 year after the other. So they're like technically young boomers, although their sensibilities with the Doug Anthony All-Stars, I think I could call them the vanguard of Gen X. Pete, you're in isolation. Ooh, you had the Rona test. Was that the freaking spike through your nose into your brain? I'm not. I mean, obviously, I'm going to get it at some point. We're all going to be tested at some point. Not looking forward to it. Schools went back this week, and yes, and already 2 Sydney schools shut down because of positive tests. It's like this whole thing of kids not getting it or it not being bad for kids increasingly looks like, yeah, nah, mate, nah. I'm really not liking the complications. I mean, obviously, the default of influenza in many cases worsening to pneumonia, not good. Of course, there's the lucky people who get virtually no system, which is actually, it seems like the majority of people who get COVID-19 have almost none to very mild to no symptoms. But then you get the people who get your classic influenza systems, and apparently it's bad. The number of people who referred to it as turbo flu, just like for weeks on it properly, and just being fucked, like just being sick as fuck with a fever, shortness of breath, persistent cough, just been fucked for weeks on end. And then even when the worst symptoms pass, you've just been so smashed about by it. You're just incredibly weak for an extended period after that. And that's not the worst of it, because we're just getting these continuing stories of kids who had the virus developing the symptoms of quite rare diseases like Kawasaki disease, and adults getting cardiovascular complications, blood clots, which is, of course, an enormous risk for stroke. So I'm really not liking the complications that we're hearing about. Like just straight down the line, severe influenza and pneumonia is bad enough and is killing people as the lungs fill with liquid and you can't breathe. But yeah, the complications, not good with, oh my God, every time we talk about this, it's like, oh my God, there's so fucking much we don't know. We simply don't know all the ins and outs of this disease yet. And all the people who say flippant things about it, it's like, no. We are so still at the beginning of this. So, no. Yes, invisible chicken. That's another one. There seem to be heart complications. That's what I mean. There's a range of cardiovascular complications we're seeing. It's just not good. It really appears to fucking attack your body if you're unlucky. In a quite sizable number of cases, the fucking virus just goes ham on your body. It just fucks with you. Possible long-term lung disorders, cardiovascular disorders. It's just like, what the fuck? And even if you don't get those complications, just a huge amount of people who are and people who recover, but are just fucking smashed by it. Like, it has the capacity to be a really serious flu, like fuck you up for months. And Jesus. So there is a lot we don't know about this yet. And it's really weird. Every day you think, wow, it'd be great if we had a vaccine. And it would be great. And a lot of really smart people are putting a lot of effort into it and think they're going to be successful, even though we have literally never found a vaccine for a coronavirus. It's a bit tricky. And there is stuff being tested. It will be a long time before we know if it's effective, namely because deliberately infecting people with something that could kill them is ethically dubious, even if the people volunteer for it. And there have been a lot of people volunteer for it. It's one thing if you're trying to test something, you think, oh, this might be a vaccine, this might work. If you give people the vaccine and just go, no, let's go about your regular life. At the moment, even though we're justifiably scared of the numbers, in most places, it's, I don't know, probably less than 5% of the population has been infected that we know of. I mean, we look at someone who's having a shit time of it, like the United States, even though all those fucking weird people are in denial about it. Okay, so with a population of over 300 million, the confirmed cases, and everyone knows the confirmed cases are way below the actual number of infections. The confirmed cases are not much more than 1% of the population. I think most people who know what they're talking about think that between 5 and 10% of the US population has been infected with the virus, even though the positive confirmed tests is less than 2% of the population. It's probably at least 5%, maybe as much as 10% of the population has actually contracted the virus. But that's still a tiny, tiny proportion of the population. It means we ain't seen nothing yet. Plus, if you just give someone a vaccine when, I don't know, 5% or 10% of the population has been infected and may no longer be contagious, and just let someone roam around, they may never come in, or it may take ages for them to come into contact with the virus. And the other thing is literally deliberately injecting them with the virus, which is ethically dodgy AF because they might die. And it's like I said, even if someone volunteers, there's that real ethical question of, can I actually do something knowing I might kill them? It's like when you hear if you ever heard of the double-blind tests, there's two sorts of tests we do in the medical world, and there's one where it's like you always have a control group, and it's like, okay, we're going to try this medication on 100 people, tell them all they've been given medication, but 50 of them have been given the real medication and 50 have been given a placebo. And the ones with the placebo are a control group. You want to see your protected group do better than a control group. And you also have what you call a double-blind test, which is meant to make the results more trustworthy, where not even the people running the test know which of the subjects were given the medication and which weren't. So that, in theory, makes the people doing the study less likely to leap to conclusions because they don't know who's actually had treatment. With yon COVID-19, this rush thing they're doing, no one's doing a double-blind test at the moment. I don't even know if there's a control group or if they're just dosing a bunch of people, because they're not following normal protocols, because untreated with no vaccine, like if we don't have a vaccine or an effective alleviating treatment, the thing that no one seems prepared to really face and really admit to, with a fatality rate that could end up being anywhere between 1% and 5%, or could even be worse, in the global population, a good outcome globally would be tens of millions of dead. A bad outcome would be hundreds of millions of dead. And the bad outcome is a possible one. So, very few people seem prepared to face that. Over the next year or two, if there's no vaccine, given how contagious this disease appears to be and its capacity for killing people, if there's no vaccine or no effective treatment, you would realistically expect in a year or two to see at least tens of millions of people dead, which is, not great at all. Yes. But yeah, just giving people a vaccine and letting them wander the world, it might be months before you have any meaningful data from that, because they're not running into people who are contagious, so you don't know if they've been exposed to the virus. You don't know if they would have otherwise contracted it if you didn't have the vaccine. So it's not gonna be quick, unless it is. I want to be pleasantly surprised. If you just look at the our history with this type of thing and how long it normally takes, having an effective vaccine, a widely available and actually propagated out around the world, a year from now, that would be a minor miracle. It is absolutely not impossible. It's actually quite unlikely, though, because it's the multiple steps. I mean, knowing that it works and isn't dangerous is going to take a long time. And then even if you go, hey, I think this works, then you go like, okay, how are we going to produce enough of it and distribute it around the world? That is a significant logistical challenge. And so having an effective vaccine widely available around the world and administered to people is not that likely. Strictly Sega, hello, good evening, and you like the James Bond vid. Thank you. It seems to be doing quite well, my humble new channel, which is nice. Because, as you know, it's a new channel and I'm still trying things. And I'd been planning that one for a little while. I think it was a couple of weeks ago we were looking up days and stuff and looked up when Ian Fleming's birthday was. And it's in 2 days. So I thought if I get the video up, I can kind of promote it for 2 days, and then maybe people will be searching on Ian Fleming's birthday, might find it in 2 days. Just in time for the weekend. You're surprised by the results. What did you think the results would be? I could even show the video here. But what it basically was, sorry, hi, Robot Man Greg. How you doing, man? I think most people are familiar with James Bond having a martini and saying shaken, not stirred. And now anyone who's into cocktails will actually tell you, why the fuck does he say? No, you stir. You stir the martini. You do not shake it. And it's generally held because there are two reasons. You will dilute the drink, and most people saying, oh, well, my drink diluted that much. And shaking a drink like that will make it cloudy, whereas if you just stir it, a martini's nice and clear. And so I did a side-by-side of the fairly out there Vespa Martini, which is 3 parts gin, 1 part vodka, half part aperitivo. So if you do that as shots, 3 shots of gin, 1 shot of vodka, that's really fucking strong. So yeah, I did the shaken and the stirred, and when you taste them side by side, the shaken one is really obviously diluted compared to the stirred one. So this is going to come down to personal taste, because I'm not a big martini drinker, and it was a good drink, but both of them were good. But the shaken one, the diluted one, to me was smoother and easier to drink, and that would have been the one I prefer. Now, because your average martini is fairly high octane, and most people don't want it diluted, and so yeah, the idea of diluting it, they're like, no. But yeah, for me, going purely on taste, I preferred the shaken diluted one. But yeah, it was very interesting to try them side by side. The difference in taste was very obvious. My first time you heard about, oh God, Morrison's bullshit. Yeah, his marketing shit. Morrison is going to take exactly the wrong lessons out of what we've faced in the last 12 months, and he's going to take exactly the wrong actions. And he's going to ass fuck ordinary workers. Strictly say, the internet says a shaken martini gets diluted too fast, too much air mixed into it. The result is slightly frothy and watered down. That's what I saw. The shaken one was very cloudy. It clears relatively quickly, but it is cloudy, looks less visually attractive than a stirred one, and it's very obviously diluted. Valium, We live in a society. Probably depends who you ask and what you mean by society and what you mean by live. Ha! Musical Avid, I love that. Work choices too. ScoMo Boogaloo. Oh, you know, Peter, that the policy the fucking LNP is going to be developing at the moment with the IPA and the Business Council is going to be absolutely horrific. And I'll peg it now. They will be trying to smash the most basic worker protections. They're going to want to get rid of minimum wage, overtime, penalty rates, the right to strike. They are basically going to push really hard after the really huge number of people have been through a very hard time. They're going to push, you're lucky to have any sort of fucking job. And they will be spouting the lie continually that employers can't afford to employ people if they have to deal with all this minimum wage, overtime, holiday pay shit. They are going to go hell for leather to drive industrial relations back 100 years. There are going to be really fucking violent protests over this. I'll tell you that for free now. It's tricky to say. Does living in a society mean the government can just miscalculate $60 billion? Yeah. Oh, yeah, superannuation is bullshit. Not the worst idea in the world, just designed by committee and too many compromises and, fuck no. I mean, you know, if I was in charge, things would be very different. Yeah. But yeah, there's oh my God. Because the LNP's going in point is going to be a fucking flamethrower to the rights of ordinary workers. It's going to be fucking brutal. And being polite is not going to help. So, Invisible Chicken, you got into a debate, with small business owners, minimum wage and employee rights. It's like, I am absolutely disgusted by people who say, and they say it quite openly and quite brazenly, that certain jobs don't deserve to be paid enough for that person to live. If a job is required, like it's a necessary thing, and, you know, this goes from people serving you food to people doing your cleaning to street sweeping to anything. If it's a role that's required for society to function the way we want it to function, the person performing that job should be able to fucking live on the salary they're given. And I don't mean eke by and barely survive. I mean they should be able to afford to pay for somewhere to live, eat, and clothe themselves, and live at a basic standard. I'm absolutely disgusted by people who disparage, the minimum wage workers. They don't deserve $15 an hour. Get absolutely royally fucked. Unless you are going to do the job, shut the fuck up. If you require someone to, serve you burgers at McDonald's, to clean your toilets, that person needs to be paid enough to live on, or you're fucking scum. You just... And where do you pay for it? Well, you know what? Companies have to have less profit. There have to be less fucking billionaires. Jeff Bezos is fucking Satan. That guy with, hundreds of billions of dollars in wealth, while literally, not literally slave, but having thousands of people around the world creating his wealth in circumstances that are barely discernible from slavery. The fact these people are, they're ground into dust. They're paid less than subsistence wages, and Bezos is just raking in the wealth. It's like, fucking no. No, you don't get to have that wealth when the people who are doing the work that creates that wealth are leading such miserable fucking existences. Ugh. Hey, Luke, how you doing? Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't want to be too mean about small business owners, but they tend to be small Nazis. And sorry, how's it going, buddy? I don't think I said hello to you either. Again, if your business can't survive by paying people who work in it a living wage, you don't fucking deserve to have your business. This idea that's become common currency, certainly in the last 50 years, it's gotten worse each decade that's gone past. It started getting very bad in the 80s, and it's gotten consistently worse since. The idea that it's admirable to attain wealth by screwing people over and ruining the lives of more and more people is fucking reprehensible. Luke, you've heard people won't be able to go to sport unless you download the government surveillance app. I don't think anyone's going to be allowed to go to sport under any circumstances for quite a while. Like, all the states are starting to do things, opening up venues and whatnot. I think we've got a pretty good chance in Australia of it working. It's just that this virus is so infectious, it can get out of control so quickly. But I think we've got a pretty good chance of managing it. We just have to keep the fucking borders closed, which has a really significant economic impact. There's no two ways about it. But you open the borders and fucking game over. People are just going to die in their thousands. But yeah, we stand a pretty good chance of progressively opening stuff up over the course of the rest of this year. I am nervous. But we stand a pretty good chance. As opposed to, say, the US, which is just fucked. The UK also appears to be absolutely fucked. You just pick out various hotspots: Russia, Brazil, and probably a lot that we don't know about are just fucked. Basically, anyone who is in a little landlocked country like us or New Zealand, I do not fancy their chances, honestly. Aussie Gun Bunny want another revolution to bring the fat ones down their knees. I tell you what, they're getting to the stage of making it inevitable, treating people so fucking badly. Look, you're blaming me for that person who came into South Australia, the first new case of COVID-19 in South Australia in like a month. The person who she flew in from Victoria, I think, where she had supposedly had a 2-week isolation after coming back from overseas, and they thought she was okay. And then she went back to South Australia, and I think it was a temperature check at the airport, and boom, first new case in South Australia. And she'd been excused from going through any isolation in South Australia. Then they found out she was positive, and it's like, oh no, oh no, oh, that's bad. Hey, Zafa, how you doing? Yes, look, I know you didn't blame me personally, but yes, yeah, whoever made the decision to not have her go into isolation, feeling pretty stupid right now. But look at us sort of agonizing over one case, and the US is still getting, between 500 and 2,000 deaths a day, and we're kind of going like, oh no, one person tested positive, and that's big news. It's like wild. Strictly Sega, catching a movie, enjoy that, mate. So was I surprised about Scummo backing down on union bill? I do not know that story. Let's see if I can find it. Morrison union bill. Scott Morrison walks away from union busting integrity bill. What's this about? Coalition will not pursue union busting legislation as a sign of good faith. He's lying. He's encouraging business and unions to join a 4-month accord-style negotiation for widespread industrial relation reform. No, it's the fuck people. Federal government will attach conditions to skills funding. Announced 5 priority areas for workplace reform. Negotiations will consider changes to award, collective bargaining for workplace pay deals, casual fixed-term employment, compliance, enforcement, paid properly. That's all that is about wage reduction. All of that is about wage reduction. Morrison said the government has already reached out to employee groups and unions who, The Guardian understands, made junking the Ensuring Integrity Bill a precondition for their support. Sally McManus from the ACTU says, job creation will take more than industrial relations. Government must reconsider cutting off wage subsidies. Australian Industry Group, welcome the priority on workplace relations. More flexible and productive workplace relationships. That means paying people less. Every time those fucking cunts talk about flexible and reform, they mean paying people less, taking rights away. Fuck these fucking scum. Business Council just says too many conditions in workplace deals. Like, they're protected. We don't want that. I swear these fucking people will end up swinging from light posts in the public square. For fuck's sake. Or removing some workplace protections could result in employers sharing higher wages with workers. Get fucked, you lying fucking sack of shit. Every fucking one of you should be in the stocks in the fucking town square with us throwing tomatoes at your fucking head. Yeah, see, the employers, they want to remove protections like annual leave, personal carers leave, redundancy pay, public holidays. They just want to fuck people. They want to fuck people so hard. Ooh, I like that talk, Aussie Gun Bunny. Throw the corrupt bankers in prison, reform the government. Democracy only works when true voices of people in power. Luke, good question about the Trump video. I am overdue to do it. I got distracted on the weekend, and now I'm at work. But yeah, I just want to sit down and examine Trump's stupidity combined with his sort of ruthlessness and rat-like cunning. Because I have no doubt half the time when he says and does stupid stuff, it's a deliberate wind-up. It's a distraction, because what he keeps getting away with is he's a straight-up fucking criminal. Ever before he got to the White House and ever since, he has been just indulging in criminal behavior to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. He's just straight up a fucking criminal. And he keeps people distracted with the bullshit. But only half the time. Because half the time, he's just that fucking stupid. Like, when this is my take, for comparison, like when in a press conference, he started randomly, because what had clearly happened is people had showed him something in a lab like, oh, we can clean these surfaces with ultraviolet light, or this sort of disinfecting cleans all surfaces, and we can be confident that's safe from the coronavirus. And that's when he famously rambled in a press conference. Can we get that light inside people's bodies? And they're just looking at him like, what the fuck is wrong with you? We were talking about cleaning surfaces. We were talking about cleaning objects. You can't do that to people. And then he's talking about getting that disinfectant inside people. And they're just going, that was industrial cleaner. It's a fucking poison. You know, yeah, poison kills the coronavirus. It kills people. That's him just being stupid. Like, he's literally that fucking stupid. This is the guy who looks straight at a solar eclipse, okay? That's stupid. But this last week, when just randomly in a press conference, he brought up that hydrochloroquine, whatever the fuck that stuff is, that stands a high chance of killing someone who takes it, who's not under strict medical supervision, because it's used for quite serious conditions like lupus and in some parts of the world for malaria as well. But it has really severe, or has the potential for really severe side effects, including making your fucking heart explode. Not literally, but killing you, yes. And when he just randomly said in a press conference, I'm taking it, yeah, he's not. He's just, that was literally just fucking with people. That was just going, I'm just going to say something stupid. Nah. And because that derails everything when there's sort of going like, hey, you know, you're about to, under your watch, after you kept saying there was no problem, you're about to hit 100,000 dead. And he just derailed it completely by just going, I'm taking this drug that I shouldn't be taking. Because someone at his age, in his shape, is at a very high risk of dying from taking that stuff. There's no way he's taking it. He's not. You can even tell from the way he was saying it. He's not taking it because it would fucking kill him. Invisible chicken, is it also used for arthritis? I don't know, actually. I don't know. I say, Aussie Gun Money, the two-party preferred system's broken. Needs to be removed. Technically, we don't have a two-party preferred system. It's just that we've got three major parties. Two of them are in coalition. So yeah, we talk about it being a two-party system, but technically there is nothing to stop smaller parties and independent people contesting all their own. And we see that the Greens starting to make inroads, some independents winning seats. So there is nothing in our current system that says government has to be a choice between two major parties. It's just that people have been led to believe that, you know, in the media, and the media, which is run by the oligarchs, the people who have the most power in our system have a vested interest in preserving our system, no matter what its shortcomings, no matter how many people it hurts. So they absolutely perpetuate the idea that it's only a choice between two major groups when, you know, if enough independents, if enough small parties just hammered at it, then things could change. Aussie Gun Bunny, if the Greens won seats, they could form a government. It's as simple as that. That's how our parliamentary democracy works. The party or coalition that has the majority of seats in the parliament can form government. Or even, as we learned with Julia Gillard, a minority party can run government if they have sufficient support from crossbenchers, independents and small parties who say, we'll support you as the government and we won't block any supply bills. So, yep, I mean, outside of the Liberal, National and Labor parties, at the moment, the Greens are the strongest political force in Australia. But Labor rightly sees them as a threat to their power because the Greens, because of their social policies, are very unlikely to, it's not impossible for them, but they're very unlikely to win in Liberal Party seats or National Party seats. They're more likely to win in seats that are traditionally voted for Labor. Disenfranchised Labor voters who rightly see a huge number of fucking shortcomings in the Labor Party think that we should get a few of the Greens in to apply a bit of leftward pressure on the Labor Party. I think the Greens are an extremely long way away from even having enough power to force Labor into a coalition with them. Little fun little tidbit. Well, like we often talk about, the Liberal Party in charge. The Liberal Party has never, ever, ever won majority. They've always needed a coalition with the Conservative country brethren. So Liberals always this evil. John Howard is the worst thing to happen to Australia in the last 50 years. John Howard is a vile little piece of shit who entrenched racism as a central part of Australian politics, to the point where Labor are a bunch of fucking cowards and spend half their time trying to out-racist the LNP. It just does my head in that they think that's a strategy. People often say, because again, the term small L Liberal, means, well, hey, let's do a dictionary definition. Okay, according to Wikipedia, liberalism, political moral philosophy based on liberty, consent to the government, and equality before the law. Robert Menzies, who formed the Liberal Party in like the 50s, and he made 1944, Robert Menzies founded the Liberal Party. And he made several statements along the lines of, this is not a conservative party. He meant the term liberal as matching that definition in the Wikipedia about it. Liberalism means the liberty of the individual, consent of the governed, equality before law, as in the government shouldn't interfere with, decent white people. And they've just progressively changed. I mean, I know like Malcolm Fraser in the 70s, they've always been anti-union, okay? Menzies was anti-communist. He saw the Labor Party as being too in bed with the communists, basically. And so Menzies was very anti-communist. Fraser was very anti-union, although socially he had some very small L liberal ideas. He was very much into taking responsibility to help refugees. He developed community radio. So he was fiscally very conservative, but wasn't completely averse to some more progressive social issues. And as he got so much more progressive as he got older, like when he was out of politics. But so Safa, who's worse, Howard or Abbott? Depends on what you're asking for. Abbott's a fucking moron who is just a wrecker, and he's got a fucking personality disorder, that guy. He didn't do as much damage to Australia as Howard did. Safi, you want me to name the worst, the best Liberal PMs? I only know the ones from my lifetime. And that's only Fraser and Howard and Abbott and Turnbull and Scummo. And I mean, okay, it depends, best to worst. What are we rating it on? I don't have any hesitation in saying Fraser is the best of them. But if I had been an adult in his world, I would have been in all the fucking street protests against his various industrial relations things, definitely. Abbott, Turnbull, and Scummo are just fucking useless pieces of shit. Howard did the most damage. Howard did the most damage to Australia. He gave away our natural resources. He put really fucking racist policies in. He literally mainstreamed racism into being one of the defining features of Australian politics in a really fucking evil, cynical plan. So, yeah, I've got no hesitation in saying Fraser was the best, least bad. Howard was the worst just because he caused the most damage. And Abbott, Turnbull, and Scummo are just a fucking shit show. Yeah. They don't even have the personality of Howard and Fraser. So, yeah. Not a fan, basically. I'm a dirty old commie. Nobody's perfect, but I'm very pro-union. Like I said, I'd bring it back to one central thing. When you see wealth being concentrated in increasingly fewer hands, and those people are concentrating that wealth at the expense of people who are living in misery and poverty, that should be a crime. That should be illegal. It shouldn't be possible. And I mean, it's got to the stage where Bezos doesn't even hide it. It's not little factories somewhere in Asia or Africa where he's exploiting people. It's in warehouses in America and England that he's running people into the ground and destroying their lives. And we applaud it. He gets applauded for doing it. It should basically be like, dude, you've got enough money, okay? And if Amazon is generating all this turnover, that has to go. It has to go back to the people at the lowest rung until they have a living wage, okay? Everybody at the lowest, all the managers, all the professionals, and all the executives, they don't get any more money. They've got enough money, okay? They are where they are. Literally, okay. And it's an easy trap to fall into when people say, oh, Jeff Bezos is going to be a trillionaire, as in 1,000 billionaire. He's not Scrooge McDuck. He doesn't have a giant vault full of money that he swims in. That wealth, most of it is imaginary. Most of it is about his holdings in Amazon, and there's magical thinking that Amazon is worth X. You can't convert that to money. You can't just convert it to money. But because the magical thinking of Amazon is worth X, so therefore Bezos's holding is worth Y, which is a subset of X, and that's hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, no, but he could convert it to billions in cash. Like, if he tried to sell all his holdings, it'd probably crash the price of Amazon stock, whatever. But in terms of cash, I'm sure he could actually liquidate billions of dollars. So when we're talking about him having hundreds of billions, he doesn't actually have hundreds of billions of dollars. There's an assessment of the net value of his holdings is 100, and you can't actually turn that into money. But he still has access to billions in cash, and that's fucking criminal. Dude, you don't need it. You can't possibly spend it, and it's sick and gross and disgusting, and it should all, like 99% of it, should be taken away from him and just progressively given to people at the lower ranks until they're all able to live like fucking humans. Yeah, invisible chicken. They shouldn't have to pee in bottles because they're scared to take bathroom breaks. Yeah. Oh, God, Stella. Painfully accurate. The damage Howard did to Australia could be summed up from the change from the most common bumper stickers going from free Tibet to fuck off, we're full. Safa, was Howard always racist or one specific election? The specific election was the children overboard. Which election was that? The children overboard effect. The lead up to the 2001 election. Howard had spent previous elections with racist rhetoric, but it was the 2001 election that he ramped it up to be. He turned it into the centerpiece of Australian politics. And as I said, it's very important to point out, Labor try to out-racist the Liberal Party half the time. So no, we can be horrible racist shits too. So Howard was always pushing this racist line about refugees and boat people, but it reached its low point in the lead up to the 2001 election. Ooh, that's a poetic statement, Murphy Sign. Journalism died the day they cropped the children overboard picture. And yeah, Matthias, Howard did his Northern Territory intervention, just fucking extending the stolen generations bullshit. So I'm not surprised you didn't know at 9 years old what was happening. But yeah, the whole children overboard thing was a fucking lie. It was a deliberate fucking lie. It was a scam designed to make asylum seekers look bad, and see, they don't deserve help. They're awful. They threw their children overboard, and it's just like it was a lie. They knew it was a lie, and they went with it. And ever since then, it's just debased Australian politics, but racism is a central defining feature of it. So we have Howard to thank for that. Oh, look, okay, there's always been the racism in Australia and in Australian politics, but Howard literally went from dog whistling the racism to megaphoning the racism. So am I the only lefty in my family? Don't think so. Don't really talk politics with family. It's a good way to have fun. I know there are some members of my family that are much more conservative than I am, but I don't really have detailed conversations about it with family members because that's where fights happen. Yeah, well, see, it not only got the Liberals elected that election, but Labor's been too scared to fight against it, and Labor's continued to allow and further the demonisation of asylum seekers since then, because Labor are fucking spineless. My God. I mean, it's one thing to go, well, I'm going to vote Labor because they're the only option I have as a government opposed to the LNP. That I completely agree with. And in the majority of seats, that's the line of voting I'd recommend in an election. But people who cheerlead Labor, Jesus. How fucking sad is the idea of cheerleading Labor, particularly now, particularly the last 10 years, cheerleading Labor, and they're doing a great job. Bill Shorten. I'm so excited by Bill Shorten. Oh, he's gone now. Oh, Anthony Albanese. I'm so excited by Anthony Albanese. What? Jesus. Hey, Megalich, how you going? And yes, Safa, Dubbo is much more conservative than Melbourne. They're probably mad Trumpy fucking psychos in Dubbo these days. I have not even visited Dubbo for a long time. But I imagine mad, insane, Trumpy coronavirus is a hoax bullshit is really widespread in Dubbo these days. Yes, yeah, still have family. Yeah, if the family starts to fall into extreme right and extreme left, it gets nasty. Oh, the classic. I want to look up the lyrics to this song. Old Irish Rover song. I think The Orange and the Green. Yeah, it is an Irish Rover song. So in Ireland, the Republican Catholics, the Green, the Protestant loyalists who want to stay part of England are the Orange. And the Irish Rovers have a very Irish song called The Orange and the Green. The lyrics, oh, it is the biggest mix-up that you have ever seen. My father, he was orange, and my mother, she was green. And my father was an Ulster man, proud Protestant was he. My mother was a Catholic girl from County Cork was she. They were married in 2 churches, lived happily enough, until the day when I was born, then things got rather tough. Baptised by Father Riley, I was rushed away by car, to be made a little Orangeman, me father's shining star. I was christened David Anthony, but still in spite of that, to my father I was William, my mother called me Pat. With mother every Sunday, to mass I'd proudly stroll. Then after that, the Orange lads would try to save my soul. For both sides tried to claim me, but I was smart because I played the flute or played the harp, depending where I was. One day me ma's relations came round to visit me, just as me father's kinfolk were sitting down to tea. We tried to smooth things over, but they all began to fight. Me being strictly neutral, I bashed everyone in sight, which is the most Irish line in all of history. And I love that the guy is from a half Protestant, half Catholic family. And so when they fight, he goes, I'm neutral. I'm going to punch everyone. That, I fucking love that. That's my Irish heritage right there. Yeah. Safa, I think Dubbo was the inspiration for Mad Max, quite honestly. Although, let's see, the original Mad Max was shot out around Geelong, a lot of it. And Mad Max 2 and 3 were famously out around Broken Hill. And Fury Road was going to be as well, except it rained. And I think it was Namibia they ended up shooting most of it in. So that was that. And Safa, the LNP did something comprehensively bad to you. You never vote LNP again. Well, they don't deserve your vote, man. There are days when I'm hard-pressed to say Labor deserves your vote as well. I mean, my big thing, if you really want to make a change, if you really want to agitate, voting isn't how to do it. Actually being in a political party. And I'm not, so I'm fucking preaching from the sidelines here. But if you want to actually drive change, voting is not how it's done. Actually getting involved with a political party is the way you can push change. And that's whether, you start as an independent or with a small party, or you try to get into one of the major parties and be a voice that pushes a particular line that you don't think the big party's doing. For sign, the LNP lost you with the NBN. Say more, but it takes too long to upload. Yeah. The deliberate destruction of the NBN by the Liberal Party just because it was a Labor policy. Oh, and also because Rupert Murdoch leaned on them because he was worried about how it would weaken his Foxtel empire. But mainly they did it. I think people overstate the Rupert Murdoch thing. I think that's there. But mainly they just did it because it was a Labor policy and they didn't want to admit Labor had a good policy. And so they fucked it. Yeah. Oh, Stella, your mum's Catholic and your dad's Church of England. Yes, by the 80s, it was just passive-aggressive comments between the grannies. Oh, my God. That sounds like fun. Passive-aggressive grannies. That's the name of my heavy metal band, Passive-Aggressive Grannies. And yes, with everyone working from home now, if I say the NBA and its substandard performance bites everyone in the ass. But I mean, it's easy and mostly accurate to blame the Liberal Party for fucking up the NBN because they did do it deliberately. But as I've said many times before, I got the shits with how Stephen Conroy, the Labor Communications Minister, fucked up the rollout of it because he alienated Telstra. It was like a huge surprise to everyone when Conroy just made an announcement and said, Telstra aren't building the NBN, it's going to be independent, and I'm going to force them to be the carrier behind it all and all this. And nobody, like Telstra didn't know he was going to make that announcement. They were probably aware of him not being happy with how negotiations were progressing, but they thought negotiations would continue. But Conroy just went, no, fuck it. Telstra aren't getting the NBN. But was still reliant on Telstra to do a lot of infrastructure work to roll out the NBN. And Telstra, Telstra had, not that they'll ever admit it, but they had a deliberate go slow to obstruct the rollout of the NBN because they didn't like what Conroy was proposing and they wanted some leverage to get a better deal for them out of it. And then Labor lost the election. Yay! And the NBN had not been sufficiently rolled out and the Liberal Party could sabotage it. See, if it had been handled a bit more elegantly and the rollout had been sufficiently advanced, the Liberal Party would not have been able to fuck it. But it had gone very slowly and had all but stalled, and so not much had happened, and the Liberal Party could get away with fucking it because nobody had experienced what the NBN could be, so they didn't know what the Liberal Party were taking away from them. And that was Labor's failings. And I'm going to say specifically Stephen Conroy's poor management of it. Really fucking pissed off. Because if it had been sufficiently rolled out, the Liberal Party wouldn't have been able to nobble it. But it had basically stalled and they could fucking nobble it. That's it. That's a good analogy, Mofo. Telstra weren't enthusiastic. It's a bit like telling a roommate leave, but then saying they have to help you clean the house as well. So I think it's almost like Ukrainian politics. Yeah. Well, I mean, A really weird, extreme example of it is the behavior of Trump, basically trying to destroy every single policy and every initiative enacted by Obama. Apathic. But yeah. So we see we don't jail opposition leaders. Oh, that happens in Ukraine, does it? Okay. Yep, there you go. Oh, yeah, Mofo, you're right. Stephen Conroy was a little bit fascist with his whole surveillance thing, but so is the Liberal Party. They're mad on surveillance. But yeah, Conroy was very out of touch with some of his desires for surveillance infrastructure in Australia. But yeah. And the Chaser did a skit on Stephen Conroy. Probably. They did skits on lots of things. I don't remember. I didn't watch the Chaser that much. Yeah, not that I'm not saying they weren't funny, because they were very successful. Just a bit sort of lads in jokes all the time. Not a lot of variety in what they did, I thought. Invisible Chicken, you are in a party but haven't done anything with it. Well, you can. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Safra. Liberals, AFP, NBN officers in 2016. I'm not sure what you're referring to. You're talking about them using the AFP to. I know they use the AFP to raid unions and journalists. It's like, yep. You look around the world today, and one thing that's common from the most totalitarian countries to even the most open democracies, about the worst crime you can commit is embarrassing the government. Because if you make public information that embarrasses the government, they will go out of their way to fucking destroy you. And that's everywhere, from, in Russia, where they just casually murder journalists, to the US, where they aggressively prosecute whistleblowers, to Australia that does the same thing. And the Liberal Party are particularly egregious with just using the Australian Federal Police to raid their political enemies. So it seems like about the worst crime you can commit in the world these days is embarrassing the government, because they'll fucking come for you. Invisible Chicken, you love watching Hellsing Abridged because the fight's between the religious sides. Hellsing, that's the anime, is it? Inspired by the Dracula character, Van Helsing? See, you watched The Chaser a lot more than me, Mo, first. So they had a skit where the ABC find their next employees from a preschool where the schoolyard dobbers media watch. So if you'd rather be in Australia than Russia, I would rather be in Australia than anywhere. That there is nowhere in the world I look and go, I'd rather be there. Maybe I'm just easily pleased, but I'm just happy to be in Australia. Maybe it's just because it's what I know. Not that I'd be averse. I mean, there's lots of places where I think I'd be quite happy if I was there, but there's nowhere that I say, I'm not pining for anywhere. I'm not going, I wish I was there. The thing. Yes, all right. No wonder the Libs don't want a corruption commission. There's really only one reason to argue against an independent corruption commission, because you're fucking corrupt. And I've said this before, but I'm super surprised that Labor is so gung-ho about, there should be an ICAC, an independent ICAC. And it's like, fucking really? Have you guys cleaned up your act or something? You guys have traditionally not done too well if corruption is investigated. But Labor's just sort of, fuck it, fucking independent ICAC, let's do it. And Liberals are going, no. Yeah, Stella, that's a good summary. That's also how I feel. We've got shit to work on, but fuck being anywhere else. Oh, yes, the lucky country, which people didn't realize was a sarcastic um, title. Quote from the book: Australia is a lucky country run mainly by second-rate people who share its luck. It lives on other people's ideas, and although its ordinary people are adaptable, most of its leaders in all fields so lack curiosity about the events that surround them, they're often taken by surprise. Yes, people go, Australia's the lucky country. They don't realize it comes from a book that was being sarcastic. The lucky country. But that thing about lack of curiosity, that's one of the things we go back to. Let's say this week, I'm going to do one where I just talk about, like, how stupid is Donald Trump. He is the worst sort of stupid in that he completely lacks intellectual curiosity. Like, you can be ignorant, as in, I don't know about a thing, but have the level of curiosity where you're open to new ideas. In fact, you're actively seeking new ideas and seeking new knowledge and seeking to alleviate the things in which you are ignorant. And then there's Trump, fucking not just stupid, not just ignorant, but absolutely lacking in intellectual curiosity and just horrifically and aggressively proud of his ignorance, really aggressively flaunting his ignorance. Trump is absolutely the worst kind of stupid. So for the year, Lucky Country, as Mofo Science says, the book The Lucky Country was published in 1964. Donald Horne, quite a fine writer. I think he was an historian. Let's look him up. Donald Horne. He died in 2005, an Australian journalist, writer, social critic, and academic. Became one of Australia's best-known public intellectuals from the 1960s until his death. I thought he might have been an historian. They're saying he was an academic. What was his academia, his background in early years? Born in Cogra, southern suburb of Sydney. Began a career in journalism, worked for a bunch of Packer publications. He edited the Bulletin. Oh my God. Apparently, the Bulletin, and I don't even know if this magazine still exists, because who the fuck knows if magazines still exist. The Bulletin was there for a while. Actually had a motto, Australia for the white man. Yikes. And he removed it. Doesn't say when. He is editing it in 61, 62, and then from 67. So somewhere in the 60s, Donald Horne got rid of the motto, Australia for the white man. So let's see. He was appointed Senior Research Fellow at University of New South Wales, Professor of Political Science, Chairman of the Faculty of Arts, retired as Emeritus Professor, and he was Chancellor of the University of Canberra. He did a lot of university work. Worked on the Australian Constitutional Commission, Chairman of the Australia Council. Despite his initial conservative views, he was unorthodox and independent-minded, without a consistent political allegiance. He was, however, known through much of the public career for his republicanism, a more independent national self-image, and his advocacy for importance of the arts and raising the standards of public debate. There you go. There you go. That's a little bit of Donald Horne, who coined the term the lucky country. Sorry, talking about being frustrated with intellectual curiosity. Safa saying Melania Trump probably gets frustrated with Donald more ways than one. Grossed out by Donald, I imagine. But hey, you take the cash, you do the thing. Oh my God, I saw that, Stella. That was horrific. Headline: Pilbara mining blast confirmed to have destroyed a 46,000-year-old site of staggering significance. It's criminal. It's absolutely criminal. My first one. Ooh, if the Irish can become white, they need more to find more aliens so Asians and even Africans can become white. It's very interesting. As I'm always bringing up, there's a podcast I listen to, comedy. Well, it's not really a comedy podcast, although he's known as being a comedian. Blind Boy from the Rubber Bandits, the Blind Boy podcast. He is really well educated. I think he studied history at university. I think he got his master's, actually. But he's very curious. We're talking about lack of intellectual curiosity being a gross personality trait. He's very curious. And he talks about how, in his view, the Irish in America took a nasty wrong turn because the Irish were absolutely not regarded as, white, not the establishment. They were very much an underclass in the United States, denied a bunch of rights, and it was regarded as fine and acceptable to deny someone basic rights just because they're Irish. But he said the Irish earned their whiteness in America by exploiting other oppressed class, like taking on the roles of the police and whatnot, and being racist towards African Americans, and which Blind Boy is strongly of the opinion was a very bad misstep by the Irish Americans. He feels they should have worked in solidarity with African Americans, recognized that they had the same struggle, but they went the other way and said, "Oh no, we'll help you. We'll help you kick the people who are even lower down the rung than us, so you accept us a bit more." Yeah, I think that's a bit of a human trait. That one is like, "Ooh, I could either work in solidarity with other oppressed people, or help you in control oppress that group even more, and then I'll be slightly elevated because I helped you oppress someone else." There's a bit of a human tendency, and I think that crosses all races and creeds, do that. Invisible Chicken, that's why you reckon Dr. Carl knows so much, because he reads a lot. Yeah. And Dr. Carl's a curious guy. Dr. Carl is a lot of intellectual curiosity. Although there was an absolutely hilarious thing. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was on Twitter. Dr. Carl did not get, I forget what it was. It was a reference to in really quite famous internet gross out porn. I don't remember it, but it was on the standard of Goatsy or fucking Blue Waffle. Like, it was that bad. If I rack my brain, it was a little while ago, so I can't really remember. But yeah, when someone said something which was a reference to sort of fairly famous internet gross out porn, and he seemed to very genuinely not get the reference. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know Dr. Carl was that innocent. Ooh. So you're reading the article about that mining thing fucking up a significant Indigenous site. They were getting told they were disturbing spirits before. The spirit's going to be really pissed now. Ooh, that would not be a site for superstitious people to work on. Mofo-san doing more of the academic research. An essay on Christian unmanned mission beyond solar system. Preliminary review, theology and silence. Oh, wow. Well, that was a plot device in the Expanse, that rather good science fiction series of books and TV show adapted from the books. The Mormons had a big spaceship they were going to ply the cosmos with. The Mormons do talk about that sort of stuff. So it is a thing. There are some religious groups who, I think, yeah, Megalish, I have not been reading for ages. I feel like I should really read the Expanse books because so many people rave about them. I don't think I've read a book this year, and I feel really bad about not even an audio. Like I haven't even listened to an audio book. I don't think. I feel very bad about that. Oh, Jesus, my first one. That is a wild essay you found. Person starts exploring artificial intelligence, the terrestrial man to be replaced by the cyber, a post-human species who embarks on multi-hundred years travel to evangelize alien species. Holy crap. He thinks the theology needs to be explored. Okay. The eighth one, fan-fucking-tastic. That is good. Yeah, I will. I feel like I have to get in. There's every now and then there's a whole bunch of books that want to get into. Oh, bloody hell. I'm lazy. I'm so lazy. I should be reading more, and I'm just not. I'm not. I'm wasting my time with frivolity. Isn't that just typical? Absolutely typical. That's so me. I'll just rag on myself for a while. Just might as well. Feel like maybe I could show my James Bond martini video. Because again, people who've been watching any of my videos or even listening to me talk on here might not be surprised to learn that after I made those two incredibly strong martinis, which I actually did during the live stream on Sunday night, and then so I had these really strong drinks late on a Sunday night. I thought, I am not drinking these really fucking strong drinks just before I go to bed. That's a really bad idea. So I actually milk clarified them, which won't be a big surprise to people who know how obsessed I am about that. And I kept it fairly simple. I still got some of it because you need some acid content, and this didn't have any juice in it because it was just the spirits. So I added some grapefruit juice to the drink, and then the milk, and then strained it. So because it was pink grapefruit juice, so the thing was pink, but then it's come out clear after I clarify. I can have one drink. I've still got a bit of drink here. I'll show you. All right. Where is it? Just a little bit of it left. A little bit of it. It's like perfectly clear. My first sign, you want to see African cyberpunk. You should look up Afrofuturism. There is actually a history of it. Yeah, I'll put that in with my lime squares. Just have a little drink. I mean, you know, to a degree, the Black Panther movie is African cyberpunk. Certainly Afrofuturism. The basic tenet of Afrofuturism, with a lot of it, is predicated on an Africa that wasn't colonized and plundered, and society and culture develop, to a sci-fi future without ever having lost their, resources or wealth to colonizers. And so that's often the starting point of Afrofuturism is imagining a different past for Africa, namely one where it wasn't colonized and plundered. But yes. Miserable Chicken. Asexuality used to be seen as solidarity with bisexuality, but now asexuals are being cut from the LGBTIQ community. That's politics, man. And this is the thing. I'm a little hesitant to get into it because it's not my politics. Good old cishet. Straight down the line. But yeah, the nature of identity and gender and sexuality can get very complicated and very messy very quickly, with different groups feeling marginalized and shut out, and other groups feeling, oh no, that motherfucker's just moving in on my territory. Fuck that, and it's really complicated. Like this sort of ties in with what I was saying before. In a perfect world, oppressed people band together for strength to fight their oppressors. But it is disturbingly common for marginalized people to go to a different marginalized group. Oh, no, fuck you. No. Throw you by the wayside. I don't want you. So, and of course, like any other group, the LGBTIQ, the rainbow people are not an amorphous blob. Gay people aren't an amorphous blob. They don't all think the same. They don't have the same politics. They don't have the same view. They don't have the same views on what it is to be gay and sexuality. They're not an amorphous blob, and it's a very common thing that I think we all fall into. I think I can classify that group, and so I think I understand that group. That's what that group is, and yeah, the people aren't an amorphous blob. It just helps us to make sense of the world. To go, I can compartmentalize. Okay, that's who that is. That's who that is. That's who that is. That's who that is. That is then, and it serves certain purposes, but it has really obvious limitations as well, which are unavoidable. That's English Wakanda forever. One things I don't know who did it. They go, well, we don't need anything new for greetings for social distancing to avoid contact for our coronavirus world. The Black Panther showed us you just do that's how you greet people. You don't touch. You just it's a pretty good greeting. I think I missed something, Stella. Who's being oppressed by the heads? I mean, look. Let's be fair. Everyone's being oppressed by the heads. So every now and then, most days, some of my queer friends find something to share on social media that's just incredibly disturbing, and the majority of them come from America, though not all of them. Just very weird behavior from someone in defense of their heterosexuality. And it's like super fucking weird and stupid, and these stories just never stop coming out. And people post a link to one of these weird fucking stories with the addendum, are the straights okay? I always answer, no, definitely not. I feel qualified to answer about all the straights, not okay. No. Weird fucking societal pressures on straights make a whole bunch of straights not okay. What I think is really funny, it seems like an endless cavalcade of Facebook groups making fun of certain behaviors. I stopped joining them after 2. One was called Man Invents Imaginary Problem, Then Gets Angry About It, which is a great way to summarize it. Actually, I'll get the proper name of the group just for the sake of accuracy. No, that's not it. That's not it. Why am I getting these things from all these groups? My StreamYard postings. I thought I left that group. Why am I still getting posts for that group? I'm gonna be nice. Okay. One of the groups that post things that I think are funny. The heading is, "In a sane world, this would be satire, but I can't be sure these days." But the one that more consistently puts content that I find really funny is the man invents imaginary scenario and then gets angry about it. Because, again, with conservative agitators, particularly in the US, the consistency with which they absolutely fabricate a scenario, like they come up with something that just isn't real, a thing that is not happening, and then they get super angry about it. It's like, but you just fucking made it up. Like it's not real. It isn't real. And you're acting like this is the greatest travesty ever. It's just such a great name for a group because there are so many examples of this behavior of someone inventing a scenario, like, and they know they're making it up. They know it isn't real. And so they're just positing a completely false scenario and then getting really worked up at this imaginary scenario they've created. It is really fucking weird to see. It's absolutely bizarre. They posted, there was this one really obnoxious misogynist post the other day, and I commented on just this gross misogyny, like, you know, what sluts women are, and I just commented, well, that's a hell of a lot of words for I've never given a woman sexual pleasure. And someone replied to that, there's a group called that's a lot of words for I've never made a woman come. I thought, yes, of course, there's a group called that. Oh yeah, I've seen that one too, Stella. I'm not in that group, but might have seen you posting from it. Another group called "We Have Murdered Satire and Sit Upon Its Corpse Like a Throne." Oh, I haven't seen that one though. Satire is dead, and America is skull fucking the corpse one last time. It's just because this weird fucking stupid shit happens all the time. Yep, mofo zone, that's the polite way of describing it. Arguing in bad faith. So when people say, why don't you debate with people who do the attack videos on you? I say, because they're stupid as shit and not worth my time. And they argue in bad faith. So when you fucking shoot down their bullshit, they just act as if that's not what they said, or they don't care about that, and then they say something else. It's like climate change deniers. There is no fucking point in engaging with them because they are disconnected from reality. They are denying basic established reality. You can't do anything about that. It's like the absolute fucking lunatics who go around saying coronavirus isn't real. They're lying about the death toll. Bill Gates wants to inject us all with microchips with a forced vaccine. And it's just like, that is so basically and fundamentally wrong. It isn't just wrong. It's based on a deliberate and mind-blowingly stupid lie. And if someone is going to base their entire worldview around a lie that's that extreme, that is so disconnected from reality, that you can't have a conversation with someone when there's no baseline of reality. Like, they are so wedded to conspiracies. They are so wedded to these absolutely unhinged scenarios that they assert a truth. You can't reach them. You can't talk to them. You can't debate them. It's like there's no value in engaging with them, because they don't even agree. Like, there's no agreement on the baseline of what reality is. Like the discussion earlier about the worst liberal leaders. A fundamental difference between, say, Malcolm Fraser and Tony Abbott is, I think, while I would have disagreed with a shit ton of stuff that Malcolm Fraser did as a politician, I feel like that we'd have the same baseline of reality. Tony Abbott is disconnected from reality. Tony Abbott continually and repeatedly asserts things that simply aren't true. See, if I was arguing with Malcolm Fraser, I'd be arguing ideology, and that's opinion. So this is an ideology I prefer. This is a thing that I think is better. That's a value judgment, not a truth. And I can acknowledge my values, my ideologies, and I will come up with evidence that I believe supports that my ideology is better, but it's still an opinion. It's about the things that I value. And Malcolm Fraser, as a politician, valued different things more highly. I valued this thing over here more highly, and he valued this over here more highly. Tony Abbott is not at one with reality. Tony Abbott continually and aggressively asserts lies all the time. Not difference of opinions. He asserts things that are not true, that are demonstrably untrue, and no amount of demonstrating what he's saying is simply untrue will reach him, because his ideology has become more important than truth. And it's just fucking wild. Hey, Glee. Yes, they're morons. Impossible to communicate with. Absolutely. And you just hurt yourself. Yeah, Safra, Abbott eats raw onions. What the fuck was... Again, on the scale of Abbott fuckery, that's real down the list, but it's still weird. The way he just took a bite out of an onion that still had the brown skin on it, and everyone was like, what the fuck are you doing, you fucking lunatic? That is not a thing humans do. That is not a thing human. And that's that weird head of his. He's a fucking alien. So good engineers can have multiple different ways of approaching a solution, but working together, stick to facts, allow the other person to help come to a common solution to the bill. Yeah, and even that, you'll get engineers who will have a preferred way of doing things and will argue quite aggressively, I know my way's better, but a good engineer will see a result and say, okay, I see you got a result. You used a technique that I don't think is good. It's not a technique I would do, but I see you got a result. But yeah, then it turns into religion when it's like, no, we are going to follow this technique no matter what. And if this technique fails to deliver the result, that's due to a lack of faith. And you have to keep trying the same technique over and over again, no matter how many times it fails, because our belief is that this technique is correct. Difference between engineering and religion. Anyway. So for Tone and Trump's are probably good mates. Tone wishes he was mates with Trump. Tone's wax off daily at the thought of being mates with Trump. Is pathetic. It's the same as fucking John Howard was George Bush's lapdog when world leaders were just like, nah to George Bush. fucking Howard was this little puppy humping Bush's leg in adoration, and Bush fucking loved it. And Scummo slavishly worships Trump, and Trump fucking loves it. Oh yeah, Stella. Engineers absolutely can be dogmatic assholes, especially when they become mining managers. But no, again, but that's where it starts to fall down. And I think I work in IT, and you get people who work in IT who worship a methodology over a result. And they've decided that a particular way of doing something is the right way, even if it fails to deliver the result they wanted. If they go, I have followed the technique, I have followed the methodology and failed, people weren't sufficiently dedicated to the methodology. You do definitely get those people who, when an approach they're taking, which they think is completely objectively done, but when their approach, when their methodology, when their technique doesn't work, you definitely get those people who are incapable of going, ooh, maybe there was something wrong with my methodology. They just go, no, you weren't pure enough in the methodology. That's when you get engineering, whether it be physical engineering or software engineering or whatever, and it starts to devolve into religion, where it's like, no, this is the one true way. And going, it didn't work. It did not work. We followed the one true way and it didn't work. You were not sufficiently dedicated to the one true way. You implemented the wrong one true way wrong. And oh, Jesus, really? You just can't bring yourself to go, it isn't going to work in this situation. But yeah, and you get, okay, and I should also stress the other way, you get religious people who are completely or very open-minded, and they view, hey, religion should be a force for good, and if I see bad things being done in the name of religion, I'm going to speak out against that. And if necessary, I'm going to rebel against that. And I'm going to be an example in contrast to thing. I will go outside the boundaries set by that religion that I was part of, because I believe that religion has abandoned the core ideology, the core message, and I'm going to show by example that you can achieve a better result in a different way. So yes, you definitely get religious people who have integrity and are open-minded and will break free from restrictions that people have imposed on them in the name of ideology. And you definitely get the engineer types who should be evidence-based and whatnot, who becomes zealots somewhat for their way of doing things. As I said, you can say engineers hate geologists because they love certainty in numbers, whereas geology is probability based on accumulated data and knowledge, and don't make statements of certainty. Oh, yeah, I could see that rubbing the end away. Yeah, you get engineers who think, no, there is a definitive answer. And yeah, you see if the geologist goes, no, the answer isn't definitive. We have to, take a best guess based on evidence and accumulated knowledge. I was checking over a book. The title was The Headliner, Abbott Eating the Onion. Ugh, that was so weird. In fact, it's really funny bringing that up tonight. I go, oh, I had not thought about that in a very long time. No, I just hadn't thought about Abbott in a long time. But it's like, that's right. He just took a big bite out of an onion for no reason. And the head wobble. The head wobble is the other thing I remember about Abbott. when a reporter pressed him on that thing you said when you went to whether it was Afghanistan or Iraq about soldiers being dead, and you just went, shit happens. Like, that seems like a really gross, callous thing to say. Nobody goes, oh, it's a talking thing, and that's that. And he expected, you will not question me anymore because I have said that's that. And the journalist goes, but that's not that, is it? That's not really an acceptable thing to say. Why did you say such a gross thing? And Abbott couldn't process that he was being challenged. And it is one of the freakiest things I have ever seen. He just stands there with his head wobbling. It's like, that's the thing, he's an alien or he's a fucking programmed automaton, and he's just processing an error. Yes, Stella, his operating system crashed. It's because an error was fed into the system. He had been under the impression when he said, I've answered the question, that was it. And the reporter went, no, that's not it. We deserve better than that. And Abbott stood there with his head wobbling for tens of seconds, to the point where the reporter is getting nervous. And he actually says at one point, Tony, you're not saying anything. It's like, he's like, yeah, is he having a stroke? Oh my God, he's having a stroke. I've made him have a stroke. Oh no, this is bad. He's having a stroke. And so like, not even Trump has done that. Trump has done stupid, petulant, weird, inexplicable things, but he hasn't had a thing where just like his synapses fused and he stood there with his head wobbling for some extended period of time. Fuck, that was strange. That was really weird. That was a thing that happened. And we all just moved on. It's like, fuck me. No, he should have been wheeled off on a fucking trolley at that point. So I reckon you're right. What was happening in Abbott's head is there was an impulse to punch the reporter. There was a really strong impulse to punch the reporter, and one part of his brain is going, but you can't punch him. You can't punch him. Punch him. But no, you can't punch him. Punch him. No, you can't punch him. I honestly think that's what was going through his head. He was fighting the urge to punch the reporter. Fuck, man, that was a thing that happened. And we just went, oh, it's the thing that happened. Like, no, he stopped working. He stopped functioning. We all saw it. He just stopped functioning. It's like, fucking hell. It's just like, Jesus. If we have knockoff versions of leaders from other countries, yep, we get a knockoff Jessica Ardern sometime. I don't really see anyone in politics. Like I said, I'm so fucking disillusioned with Labor these days. They're just like really trying out the water. Like, can we out racist the Liberal Party again? Just say, oh, you know what we have to do after coronavirus? Not let any foreigners into the country. And let's be protectionist and blame the foreigners for what the fucking oligarchs and neoliberals fucking did to everyone. Let's, rather than say who's actually responsible, let's say the other victims were the ones who was responsible. Like, yes, we've been fucked over by the oligarchs, and they have actually used migrant labor to fuck over other workers. That is not the fault of the migrants. That is the fault of the fucking oligarchs who are doing it. Jesus Christ. And yeah, Labor are just so shit. Oh, that's a good summary, Stella. That was Tony's inner Gollum and Smeagol fighting when his head was doing the... So, did he also eat raw potatoes? Probably. Wouldn't bother me. And again, raw onion, raw onion's fine. Raw onion's quite tasty. Taking a bite out of a whole peeled raw onion would be weird. taking a bite out of a whole onion that's still like got the brown skin on it is just fucking surreal. That is, again, it was a programming area. That's why it stands out. There was all Abbott's lies, his viciousness, his racism, his homophobia, his general bigotry. That was all as per program. But the biting the onion and the operating system crash, those were system errors. Those were programming errors. All the actual true vile, horrific things Abbott said and did, that was all as per programming. Those were all intentional. That was as it was meant to be. But the onion bite and the wobble head, those were fucking system crashes. Those were programming errors. That was really, really weird. Yes. Oh God, Safa. Yes, the way the oligarchs plundered Russia in the 90s. Oh God, that's orders of magnitude worse than what happened in Australia, because they were just literally wholesale killing anyone who got in their way. And that small number of absolutely brutal people like took over oil production and whatnot and made hundreds of millions, billions, and just fucking killed anyone who got in their way. Yes, what happened in Russia, orders of magnitude worse than what happened in Australia. Although what happened in Australia, still bad. Still bad. Still want to make the oligarchs pay for it. So I am sure there is a bobblehead of Tony Abbott. In fact, look, I'm going to search Tony Abbott bobblehead. That auto-completed. Tony Abbott bobblehead. Okay, that's really fucking freaky. Jesus, what the fuck? Sorry, what no picture of a Tony Abbott bobblehead came up. Lots of references to the weird thing where but what came up on their sponsored links is custom made bobbleheads, and they're nude bobbleheads. Like you get a scan of your head put on a big bobblehead based on a scan of your head placed on a nude body. And there's one called a pen holder, which again, scan of your head or someone else's head, someone on the ground with their bum in the air and their butthole is a pen holder. What the fuck? Jesus. Okay. Oh, shit, I didn't need to know, but now I know. There's a whole fucking industry of nude bobbleheads. You get a scan of your head, and then they make a bobblehead of you, but nude. So, okay. Oh, dude, that is a good laugh to end the chat on. A joke about, you know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. But as soon as Tony Abbott eats a raw onion, everyone loses their mind. That movie, The Dark Knight, has been in rotation on Foxtel, so I've caught bits of it quite regularly when I've been flicking through channels. Fucking Heath Ledger, man. It's such a tragedy. Poor guy died. That was, it's an amazing piece of work, him as Joker, that no one really believed he'd be that good when he was cast in role, and he was fucking amazing. That was just amazing. Actually, even, I was so worried about the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, because it seemed like fucking and the way the writer director of it was talking, fucking seemed like incel propaganda. But it wasn't. It's great kill the rich propaganda, which is pretty good. There were a couple of very good ones like that. It's like spoiler alert for close to final scenes of the movie when Joker's on the talk show and he admits to killing the yuppies who attacked him, and he keeps laughing, and Robert De Niro, as the talk show host, is going, like, it's disgusting. You think these people being killed is funny? And he laughs and goes, yes, I do think it's funny, and I'm tired of pretending it isn't. Like, whoa. And then the line about what do you get when you I want to get the actual line. I was going to get the quote. Joker, what do you get? Quote, what do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash? I tell you what you get. You get what you fucking deserve. That's a bleak and hard line. So if you think Turnbull thought Abbott was crazy, I think not that I'm ever going to read it or even read an extract or a fucking summary of it, but I'm pretty sure Turnbull did say in his book that Abbott was a fucking lunatic. Megalich, you're a bad influence, man. You want to get a birthday present for AIDSy, forget the iPad and trip to Canberra, get a nude AIDSy bobblehead. Ugh, no, he'd enjoy that far too much. Still, I agree. Ledger is a more true to the comics Joker. Phoenix is very good, but it's a very different sort of thing. It was so much better than I expected. Yeah, no, Heath Ledger's Joker, just how he interacts with the other criminals, how he interacts with the Batman, was, oh my God, it was just so good. Oh, anyway, I'll now go on that line. Joker talking about Tony Abbott. Absolute class mofo sign. You know what I've noticed? No one panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. But as soon as Abbott eats a raw onion, everyone loses their mind. That's a good thing. Okay, thank all you wonderful people for joining me this evening. I hope you look after yourselves, stay well, have a bit of fun, do something good for yourself. Hope to see you again soon. And I am going to go to bed because it's that time. So thank you, one and all. You're all fabulous people. I hope you stay well. But I'm going to say good night. So bye for now.